Hi, Anne. Today we have the pleasure of talking to Anne Cleeves, the queen of Scottish noir. For more than 3 decades, you have captivated millions of readers with your stories that are full of mystery, humanity, and unforgettable landscapes. You have won the prestigious CWA Gold Dagger Award, and your detectives have become true literary and television icons. And at Principal Libros, we have published this year Raven Black, Cuervo Negro, uh, White Nights, Noches Blancas, which are the first and the second books in the Shetland series featuring Inspector Jimmy Perez. And now we have just published Telling Tales, which is in Spanish Muerte en el Páramo, and it's available in all Spanish bookshops already. And it is an exciting novel starring the unmistakable detective Beren Stanhope, and both TV adaptations are available in Spain on Filming. So the first question I wanted to ask you is, after more than 35 years writing mystery novels, what drawn you to start writing this genre?
I always wanted to write. I always wanted to tell stories. But at first, I thought I was going to write a great work of literature. I'm quite good, I think, at developing characters, but I'm hopeless at writing a plot. So it's fine to have very interesting characters, but something has to happen. You can't just have them sitting in a room talking. And I wasn't quite sure what I could make happen. But then I killed somebody and I was away because I had that structure and that plot already. And when I was growing up, I loved mystery stories. They were my comfort reading. They were what I turned to if I was feeling ill or I'd been dumped by a boyfriend. I turned to mystery stories. So it made sense then to write them.
And I'm sure that your readers also find some kind of healing, even if it's crime novels, they also find some kind of healing in those stories.
I think so, because there is a sense of reassurance that at the end, justice is seen to be done. And in a crazy world as we're in at the moment, it's good to have a feeling that order might be restored.
Yeah, that's true. And I wanted to ask you, how do you usually build up your stories? Do you start with a crime you have in mind, a character, or a place?
Very much a place. I always need to know where the book's going to be set before I start writing, because I think that people grow out of the places where they live and where they were born. So we become the people we are because of the community that we live in. And so that I need to know exactly which community, in which place my characters come from, because that decides their names, how they speak to each other, what job they do. So it's always place.
Okay, and do you plan the culprit and the bad, like the person who committed the crime since the beginning, or do you write it as it goes?
I write it as it goes because for a lot of years I was writing and having no commercial success. And so it had to be fun. And if I knew how it was going to end, there wouldn't be any fun in writing it. So I write like a reader. I write the first scene, and then I need to know what's going to happen next. So I write the next scene. And eventually, about halfway through, I have some sort of idea how it's going to finish.
And have you surprised yourself while doing it, thinking, oh, like I made the right decision?
Yeah, sometimes it's a bit tough. You get halfway through and you wonder if you're going to work out at all how to tie all the ends together. But that's part of the challenge of the writing, and it's what makes it exciting and fresh, I think.
Yes, that's right. And I also wanted to ask you, how has your writing style changed from your early books until now?
I'm not sure really. I've gone back to reread the early books recently because my English publisher has reprinted them. And it was quite interesting because in my memory, I didn't think they were very good at all. But going back to them, they're very short, they're very tight, they're quite clear. So although they're different, I think they still have something to say.
Yes, that's right. And also, I wanted to ask you if you have some specific crime authors that have influenced your work through the years.
Yeah, I've always liked crime in translation, so I've enjoyed the Nordic writers, the Scandinavians, and and some Europeans, so Fred Vargas. And I did read Arturo Perez Reverte, which is how I chose Perez as a name for Jimmy.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to ask you that question. We answered it before. Okay, and what do you think makes a crime novel good? And what are some cliches that of the genre that you consciously like to avoid?
I suppose the miserable male detective, the alcoholic, or the maverick who thinks it's fine to break all the rules to get his man. Those are the tropes that I would probably avoid. And what I think makes a good detective or a good crime novel, I like there to be compassion and humanity at the heart of them, because I think lots of police officers actually go into the business with all the right reasons. They want to help people, they want to make communities safer. And so, yeah, I'm a great believer and in looking at that. And certainly in the UK, these days, the police are our first responders. So if a child's running away from a kid's home or an old person's gone missing because of dementia, quite often it is the police that are dealing with those social issues. So it's possible for crime fiction to look at ideas of social justice, I think.
Yeah. And I also wanted to ask you in Telling Tales, Muerte en el Páramo in Spanish, it begins with the news that a woman has been wrongfully imprisoned for a crime she did not commit. And why did you choose this premise?
I think I did work in prisons for a bit. I worked as a probation officer, so working with offenders. And then later, when I became a full-time writer, I set up reading groups in prison. And it always seemed unfair to me that to get an early release, you had to admit that you'd committed the offense. So people who carried on proclaiming their innocence were kept in prison for much longer than those who played the game and admitted their guilt. And so I suppose that was in my head when I started writing the book.
Okay, and also another thing that we really like about Detective Vera Stanhope is that she has a very distinctive personality and a way of, is investigating things that is not the typical style, and it clashes with the established norms. And what inspired you to create such a distinctive character?
I think, first of all, I wanted to create a woman who was in charge of a team, who was competent, authoritative, knew what she was doing, but could be overlooked by some people because of her age, because she's not glamorous, she's not well dressed. So she's a middle aged woman who doesn't care at all what she looks like, but still manages to capture the authority of her team.
Okay, and another topic in your books that you explore is collective guilt and how a community can just close ranks about certain topics that they don't want to cover. Why are you interested in this perspective?
I'm very interested, I think, in families and what holds them together and what breaks them apart, and communities and what bring them together and what breaks them apart. Partly perhaps because I did train to be a social worker, so my work was in that field. Um, so yeah, I'm interested in secrets that everybody knows but refuses to talk about. That's quite an interesting topic. And I think especially in some communities where the police are seen as outsiders, people do close ranks and keep those secrets.
And also, the town where the story of Telling Tales, Muerte en el Páramo, takes place seems like really suffocating in a way. And how did you work to create that feeling of almost claustrophobia?
Yeah, it's set on in a real place in East Yorkshire, and so it's away from Vera's natural home. So she's going somewhere that's new and strange to her. So I could see this, as you say, very close, claustrophobic community from an outsider's perspective. And that was quite an interesting way to write it, I think.
Yeah, and also several characters in this story show different forms of obsession, fascination, and even unrequited love. And what role do these emotions play in the tragedy and the development of the plot?
I think they do. I think we're always looking at reasons that might push individuals to extremes. And you're right that all those things, obsession, unrequited love, can make people do things that are out of the ordinary that you wouldn't expect them to do because they're in a heightened state of anxiety or of passion in a way. So feelings that might in other senses be controlled suddenly become uncontrolled, and that can lead to action and lead to violence.
And also, as we said before, the landscape, the place is almost another character in your novels. And what did you choose places like, for example, the Shetland Islands, where the red, black, and white nights are set?
I suppose I'd choose places that I know very well. So I did work in Shetland for 2 years, and there is something about the bleak beauty of that place, and the fact that you can see for miles and miles and miles because there are no trees there really. So you can see right to the end of the horizon. You could always very, very close to the sea. So the contrast between that and then secrets that might be hidden, I really enjoy writing that contrast.
And we
We
also talk
expect that
about
we'll know everything because it's so open.
yes, that's true. And also, apart from the landscape or the place, we talk about the surname Perez, which I'm sure that your Spanish readers were mostly surprised that you chose it. Can you talk a little bit more about it and how have you seen your Spanish reader, receiving that they have used it? You have the surname Perez.
Well,
Yes.
I didn't choose it in the hope of making the Spanish readers pleased, though I'm delighted that it does. Jimmy Perez comes from Fair Isle, which is the most remote inhabited island in the UK. And it's really far north, and it's halfway between the Shetland and the Orkney Islands. And there was a Spanish Armada ship wrecked there called El Gran Grifon. It must have been blown way off course to end up so far north. But there were 60 survivors who scrambled ashore. So it's not outside the bounds of possibility that one of them married a local woman and passed on that Spanish name.
Mm,
And of course, I had read Autora Reverte,
yeah.
and so it stuck in my head that I could call him Perez.
Yeah. And also another thing that has got people attention are your TV adaptations for both Shetland and Vera. And is this how you imagine the characters to be when the cast was chosen? Or did you participate in choosing the cast?
No, I had no control over who was playing the characters. I didn't want any really because I was working with a very good team and I trusted them to know what made good television. I write prose. Mostly I'm inside people's heads. I don't see them from the outside, and you need to be able to see everything from the outside with television. But no, Dougie Henshaw, who they chose to play Perez, what didn't look anything like my Perez, who looked Spanish and Mediterranean with dark hair and olive skin and dark eyes. But he managed to capture the character very well because he plays somebody who is so involved in his work, so sympathetic to the suspects and the witnesses, but yeah, even the perpetrator, he has some sympathy for, that he has no energy or emotion left for the people close to him. And I think Dougie played that beautifully. And the same with Vera, really. My Vera is big and she doesn't look good at all, and she's very scruffy. The actress Brenda Blethyn, who plays Vera, she dresses down, but she's always going to be quite elegant. She's a very elegant actor, but she too manages to capture the the atmosphere and the character in the books.
Yes, I really agree with that. And we also know that the Spanish readers love your books and those adaptations into series as well. And early this year, you were at the Barcelona Negra Festival to promote the release of Raven Black, Cuervo Negro. And what did you like the most about your experience in Barcelona and to be in touch with your Spanish readers?
It was great. I loved every minute of it because the readers were so enthusiastic. They were waiting for me outside the theatre where we were doing the show. Of course, wonderful to meet up with my publisher for the first time in person. And man, what good food you have in Barcelona! I love the I love the meal when Claudia, my editor, took me out for lunch. So all that, it was a great experience.
And we are really glad to have you here. It was an amazing time with you. And I also wanted to ask you, can you give us a sneak peek of the stories you are working on now?
Yeah, I'm working. There's a new book here coming out very soon in a couple of weeks called The Killing Stones, and that's the most recent Jimmy Perez book. And that's set in Orkney, not Shetland. So I've changed the setting a little bit and had great fun researching that, going back to Orkney and spending some time there with the locals and researching that. And the book that comes out next year is a Matthew Venn. It's a North Devon book. And then now I am working on a new Vera.
Oh, great. We are really looking forward to that. Okay, and also I have another question. Is there a book you still dream of writing, but you haven't dared to tackle yet?
Oh, that's a really hard question. I don't think so. I feel quite liberated. So I feel that I can write any book that comes into my mind. I don't feel limited. I've got very good publishers who give me the freedom to write what I want. So if I get an idea, I think I will just write it.
Okay. Thank you very much, Anne, for the interview. It has been a pleasure talking to you today. And for all the Spanish readers who love crime novels and classic crime stories, we invite you to read Cuervo Negro, which is the first in the Shetland series, and Noches Blancas as well, which is the second one. And we just have just released Muerte en el Páramo, which is part of the Vera Stanhope series. And we can reveal that in November, we will be publishing the third book in the Shetland series in Spanish that has the title in Spanish, Huesos Rojos. And we are sure that you will like it as much, if not more, than the previous installments in the series. So thank you, Anne, for being here with us.
Well, and thank you very much. It's been lovely to talk to you and to talk in a way with my Spanish readers too. So thank you all.